I'm not sure you volunteered for that, but you've emerged. And Sarah's a powerhouse, so she's been on, you might have heard her on ABC Radio, she's been interviewed, she's been in a number of news articles. Yesterday she was in Peter Dutton's office talking about the issues there. So Sarah's operating at a very high level here, but and she'll talk about that. But let's just start with what did happen, Sarah, in Samford Valley on the 26th of May.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, and it's great to see such a big crowd here tonight. So yeah, I live in Samford Valley, which is similar to Currumbin. It's beautiful. We've got pristine waterways, creeks, surrounded by Mount Nebo, Mount Glorious forests, and you know, I have 2 children. We play there in the creeks, and I couldn't believe it. I woke up on Sunday the 26th of May to the choppers flying around the valley, just swooping. Nobody had a clue what was going on. At one point there were 3 choppers flying. I have a friend who lives on acreage, and she rang me up and said, "You've got to see what's going on here." And she took some footage. I'll just play this now.
So now that over our property spraying, my husband is down the back, we have not consented. We've also sent emails to the aviation company to state that we do not consent to low-flying vehicles over our property. Yet here we are. They're now flying over the boundary of our land. And our neighbours, they're within 150 metres of our neighbour's house, which was not supposed to be the case. And they've sprayed my land when I've explicitly said I do not consent. I have livestock, children. They're now spraying over the South Pine River. They've sprayed over the South Pine River now. So that has gone directly into a water source, despite the fact that the regulation and guidelines says that it is dangerous to aquatic life and should not be used near waterways. And they have sprayed it directly over the South Pine River.
So as you could hear, she actually did get notification, but literally on the Friday about 5 p.m, and these choppers came Sunday morning at 7:30. She had actually put in a request that they do not spray her property, but as you could see, she actually said her husband was in the paddock. It actually went on his head. He was very seriously ill after that. He had red eyes, serious respiratory issues, and we could see it going into the South Pine River. So later that afternoon, another resident said, "You've got to get up to Dawson Creek," which is another waterway, a beautiful area like this. And so me and that lady and another local, we went up here, and I'll just show you a bit of this video here. So there's more evidence of the pyroproxyphene that was aerial dropped all in this running waterway. You can see these granules everywhere. They are in everything. They are on the rocks. They are in the water. This is not good, and this is not permitted. Yeah, so as you can see, we found these little yellow corn grit granules, which are the poison babes of pyroproxyphene, and it was all in the water. If you move on to the next slide. Oh, that's all right. There was another slide that showed them all close up, but as you can see, they were there. So we then went to the South Pine River area where you saw that chopper dropping it, and we found all those granules there as well. And it actually rained that afternoon, so it had diluted the samples. So we gathered water samples from both those water sources. And then literally 4 days after that happened, the Fire Ant Program came to Samford to tell us what they were doing. And we had a very lively meeting with this guy here. This is Graham Dudgeon. He was the head of operations at that time. The first thing he said when he opened that meeting was sorry, Samford, we made a mistake. We baited one of your creeks with the wrong chemical. Our pilot did not realise there was a water source there. So I said, well, how did you not know South Pine River was there? You know, that's the main water source. And he said, oh, we don't know about that one. But he then goes on to, this is his admission.
Yes, and that. Could I explain what we do around waterways? And I will acknowledge and admit right now that we made a mistake with baiting one of your creeks. So what we promised is that all I was alluded to was one of them, and it's probably noticed. So can I just...
Anyway, he went on just to say, yeah, we made a mistake, our pilot didn't realise there was a water source there. So, as you can imagine, there was a lot of locals at that meeting who were really unhappy, and we also know that there was another meeting, this is the one that Katarzyna was talking about at Currumbin, where you have Dr. Puckett, Marnie Manning, who's suddenly the new head of operations. So Graham Dudgeon's nowhere to be seen anymore. And this guy here, this other guy here, he is Rhys Pianta. He's the advocacy manager for the Invasive Species Council that lobbies for more and more money for this program. He also, so the residents of Samford, we went to our local MP, Nikki Boyd, and Nikki Boyd's a Labour MP from Pine Rivers, and she said, I can't help you, Samford, because I have a conflict of interest. That's her husband.
Funny old world.
So, and then Nikki Boyd, who is currently going up for the state election, said, this Fire Ant program's nothing to do with me. Those Fire Ants are now in New South Wales. You need to go to Peter Dutton, who's our federal member. So she's totally passing the buck on this, which Samford residents are not happy about. Marnie Manning at this meeting at Currumbin actually admits we've lost Samford. They've lost Samford, and she was.
And I think this is where we need to be more communicative and tell you exactly what we take into account. We do look at, we assess every time we're about to treat, we look at the human rights and make sure that we understand that we are infringing on people's human rights, and we make sure that we believe we're as limited as possible as we can be. And be respectful on people's properties. That's why.
Look at him in the middle. He's looking very uncomfortable. Okay, we can move on. She basically says we realise we are infringing on your human rights. And she also says we've lost Samford, and obviously Dr. Puckett's very uncomfortable during that. Now, Dr. Washington Sanchez is the guy who did our water test for us. He's an independent chemical analyst. He lives locally, and he was supposed to be here tonight, but unfortunately, due to circumstances, he hasn't been able to make it. So I'm just going to talk briefly about what Dr. Washington told us. So the results came back a couple of weeks after, and it was pretty shocking. So in the middle here is Dawson Creek. The levels of pyriproxyfen were 81 micrograms per litre, and the upper reporting limit is 0.04. That is 202,000% more than the safe limit. South Pine River also came back at 3.3, which is still extremely high, but as I said, it had been raining that afternoon, so it had diluted quite a lot of that water sample. Dr. Washington actually had those results done at Queensland Government Forensic and Scientific Service Lab. He didn't tell them that he was doing it for this, because interestingly, since we've had our results, which were positive, no one has had a positive result since. So Dr. Washington wrote us this report, and he said the detected levels of pyriproxyfen in Dawson Creek at 81 micrograms is alarmingly high. significantly exceeding safe environmental concentrations. This could lead to severe ecological consequences such as reduced fish populations, impaired ecosystem health. We have lungfish in our rivers there, and lungfish are a vulnerable species. They've actually said we won't know those lungfish are gone until they're gone, and nobody seems to be monitoring them at all at the moment. Now, our residents in Samford Valley, we're pretty switched on, and we don't like stuff happening like this, so we had a resident who recorded the flight tracker map of one of those choppers. Now, what you can see here is the majority of the squiggles, that's over our national park. That's Mount Glorious, the top one, and that's Mount Nebo, the bottom one. They're all heavily canopied areas, and as you heard, those ants do not nest in the forest. So why are they dropping it all over Mount Glorious? And these have all waterways that are running down into our valley. So that's pretty shocking. Did you want to?
We just wanted to take that point, and that's what happened in Samford Valley. So you go, well, what does our terrain look like? And we know what our terrain looks like. And we're really heavy. Here's Currumbin Valley here. So we're substantially forested, we know that. And we also have these really steep escarpments which drop straight into Currumbin Creek. So any wash-off is going to go into Currumbin Creek, and we've all been concerned about Currumbin Creek for years in terms of what goes in there upstream and comes down. And the interesting, we keep coming back to this. They keep telling us, they know this. The fire ants don't live in the forest. So why are you doing that? And secondly, most incursions come from human movement of materials. In the early days, back in December, and I'm talking to these guys and I'm saying, a fire ant's here, and they go, yeah. Oh, where are they? And they said, well, they're at the Pony Club on Galleon Way and the other one up at Coplix. I thought, okay, well, what did they walk here? And I said, no. No, they came in the hay. Yeah, they came in the hay. They were transported here. So we've got two things going on here. The ants aren't walking here, they're being transported here, and they're not in the forest. So how does carpet bombing the entire countryside, is that a disproportionate response to the risk we're facing?
Thank you. So I'll just do a very, very quick history of the fire ants in Australia, because a lot of people think they've only been here since 2001, but in fact they were only discovered in 2001, but because the nests were about 1/2 metre high and covering almost 40,000 hectares, it shows that they've been here since the 1990s, so probably at least 10 years prior to that. So between 2001 and 2004 they did a number of poisoning programs and 2 years of surveillance, and eradication was finally abandoned and converted to what is more reasonable, which is containment and suppression. But for some reason they kept bringing back multiple programs that have started and been abandoned since then. And since 2017 they've just been non-stop just saying they're eradicating, but I'll talk a bit more about why they're calling it eradication. So the first brochure I got actually said Australia is the only country to attempt an ant eradication on this scale. Every state and territory backs our program. Now the reason for this is the largest ever successful eradication was on 8,300 hectares. We're talking 850,000 hectares. That's over 2,000 acres of land. Other countries such as China, USA, Taiwan, they've all given up, and we're the only country stupid enough to keep trying to eradicate, but again, I'll tell you why in just a minute. So Henry Palaszczuk, Henry Palaszczuk was one of the first, he was the Minister of Agriculture back in 2004, and he has consistently talked about this program, and he was asked, are we winning at the war against the fire ants? And he didn't actually say yes. He just actually said, my simple answer is this: we can find fire ants and we can kill fire ants. But that isn't a yes, is it? And that was back in 2004. But he also goes on to say, if you go to the next one, they actually knew back then that there was a lot of land, there was no interest to fire ant control, because they were heavily forested areas. So again, we're asking, why are they carpet bombing 2 million acres now of land? Another lady that has been very outspoken about this program is Dr. Pam Swepson. She actually just won Whistleblower of the Year award for her revelations about this program. She actually made a public interest disclosure back in, I think, 2006, after she had worked for the program for a couple of years. And she actually said and she's now recently said, in 20 years we have spent $1 billion and the problem is 20 times worse. So she's spoken out about this program. Now the reason we're talking about it is because of the funding. So the funding of the program has at the moment something like over $500 million allocated for it to run until 2027. They've already spent $1 billion, and they need this program to run till 2032 because guess what? They want to eradicate these ants in time for the Olympics.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other reason they're motivated to call it eradication is because 90% of that funding comes from the federal and other states. And Queensland only pays 10% of that funding. So $1.5 billion now, and Queensland has paid 10% of that, and they get to run the program and get paid to run the program. So there's a big incentive to call it eradication. So even with the current funding, even with the current funding structure, they've been allocated $113 million a year. But even after a strategic review they did back in 2021, so they need at least 200 to 300 million a year to run this program to eliminate them by 2032. So they're not even got half of what they really need if they were supposedly doing it properly. But and the biggest concern, so one thing Samford people said, what is this doing to our environment? Where is the environmental risk assessment? And they said, oh, we've got this one here. We did it in 2001. We looked at 60 plots of land that were 532 square metres on average, and all the native ants repopulated except one, but we're happy that it's not harming the environment. So that's our environmental risk assessment, a study done in 2001 looking at 532 square metre blocks of land, whereas we're talking 850,000 hectares of blanketing of these poisons. And the USA, Dr. Puckett, who you saw earlier picking his ear, he said, our largest mistake was the use of insecticide dropped aerially. What we were disturbing were the would-be competitors of fire ants. So when the fire ants moved in, they had no competitors. Now that is our biggest concern now, is these baits, these poisons, they poison all our ants. They don't just poison fire ants. And so we are just going to kill all the native ants, and they are the ones who are the competitors. So we will end up with an even worse problem after this. And that was part of that same study I think I've just talked to you about. We got some, they've been breaching their permits left, right and centre since this started. I won't talk too much about it because I think Connie, who's coming on, is going to talk about that. But yeah, again, these are all the permits that I put up for discussion, but Connie's going to be talking about the permit. I just want to talk about this one though. This is the permit for S-methoprene that they say is the other chemical that's a bit better than pyriproxyfen, even though it's still not. It's still very toxic to aquatic life. I just want to point out the permit holder is Biosecurity Queensland. The supplier of this chemical is also Biosecurity Queensland. So they're supplying the chemical. But there's another supplier called Wellmark International Australia Proprietary Limited. And I thought that sounds pretty impressive. So I looked up their address on Google Maps, and it's this little shack in the middle of nowhere. A little meth shed. So this is Wellmark International. Anyway, we'll just go. I won't talk about the permits too much. So the only thing the program has done to Samford is they did call off the choppers. We no longer had aerial baiting, and then they actually said we're going to review our procedures. Meanwhile, they were still bombing everyone else. We're going to review our procedures, and in future we will only use S-methoprene in Samford Valley. But it's still very toxic to aquatic life, and it indicates do not contaminate waterways. Connie's going to talk about the chemicals, so I won't talk about that. Again, chemicals. There's lots of studies how dangerous these chemicals are, so Connie will talk about that. These are the concerns of the program today. No environmental impact studies, breaches of permits. They don't even seem to be adhering to the CASA permits for their aircraft. Obviously water contamination. One of the big things for us though is the mental health it's causing to people. People are really stressed about this, and we're feeling very violated. We're feeling violated because now these people are not only with the aircraft, which you can't seem to stop, but they're coming onto our land, they're jumping fences, they're bringing police, they're threatening us with $15,000 fines. And so I just this is why we're having these meetings. We need people to be aware about what's going on, and hopefully we can all band together and help each other. And I just want to point out this map here, on the colourful map on this side is a map of the treatment area they've done, where this is all the poisoning they've put down between 2017 and 2021. Some areas they've done 11 times. Yeah. And then I want to point out the current map of infestations, and that's the same area. And as you can see, those ants are still there, so aerial baiting does not appear to be working that well. We've been consulting with a number of other scientists. We've had Dr. Matt Landos, who's Director of Future Fisheries. He's helped us a lot. He's also spoken in the press about how toxic the poisons are being used. He goes through a number of key points. One, that they found fipronil in the Logan River, which is a forever chemical and a class 1 carcinogen. That's what they use to treat the nests directly with. I won't go through all those because there's a lot of speakers to come after me. And then that brings us on to Dr. Connie Turney, who has been amazing. She's been helping us and talks with us, and she's going to talk now about her experience.
What about Peter Dutton? You said, did you have a meeting with Peter Dutton?
Yeah, I had a meeting with meet Peter Dutton yesterday, and he's given us some good pointers, and I'll be sharing that on the Facebook group. But basically, we're going to be talking to the Commissioner of Police about what the police are doing with this program. He seems to be on our way of thinking that this program isn't effective, but because he's not currently in power, we need to wait until the next state elections, where we think there will be a shift to LNP, so we can start talking then about getting an inquiry. Yeah.
Sarah, before we go to Connie, I'm interested, you ended up in a dialogue with the Minister for Agriculture, Mark Ferner, right? How did that conversation go?
How could I forget that one? Yeah, I met with Mark Ferner at one of his meetings, because he's actually the Minister of the suburb down from Samford, of Ferny Grove. He was just telling us the usual spiel, like, the program's amazing, it's working. And when we started asking him about, well, what about this, what about that, what about poisoning our creek? He promised me a meeting with him in the city. He said, look, come along, we'll meet with you in the city. I'll bring along DAF and biosecurity. Anyway, then shortly after that, I did a series of radio interviews. And every time I did a radio interview, Mark Ferner would come on after me and start gradually saying, first of all he said, oh, we're trying to meet with these people and they're refusing to meet with us. But the people who were trying to organise it, they were dragging their heels meeting us. But he's telling everyone on the radio, oh, these people aren't meeting with us. Then his dialogue got more and more insulting. He said on one radio show, he said, you do realise these people you're dealing with are anti-vaxxers? and conspiracy theorists. And then it got actually even worse because I spoke in a rally, and next minute I'm being interviewed by an ABC reporter, and he's asking me over and over again, what's your thoughts on microcephaly? What's your thoughts? I've never talked about microcephaly in any of these speeches I've done. And next minute, an ABC's done a total hit piece on me, saying anti-vaxxer conspiracy theorist from Samford Valley is saying that fire ant bait causes babies' brains to be small. And I never said that. Also, Connie Turney talked at that same rally with me. They didn't even mention in the article that she was there with me. So it was a total hit piece to make us look as if, yeah, we're a bunch of nutters. But anyway, Mark Ferner has since now refused a meeting with me. He doesn't want to see me anymore, so that one's over and done with.
It'll be done next week.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that should be left that way. So, Mark Ferner, if you're going to watch this video afterwards, we're interested in your response to Sarah, because that's just outright rude. You are the government, you're there to serve us. We have some.
Yeah.
Concerns, there are what's going on. Thank you, Sarah.